So, I guess your question is, why are human beings so counterfeit?
Yes.
Is it true that you're counterfeit? Well, I think if you were to maybe just examine human nature, who they are, what they are, who they want to be, what they want to be. You know, there's always been a difficulty with the is, ought, issue. I am this way, but I ought to be something different. I am a sinner, but I should be a saint. I am immature, but I ought to be more mature. I am mean-spirited, I ought to be more generous and compassionate. It's a conflict that has always existed, I suppose when you work with the public, whether you're a police officer or you're a jurist, or any sector of society that forces you to deal with the public. Initially, when you move into these environments, you really want to be there for people. I mean, initially when I started my career, I really wanted to be there for my students. I had an open door policy. I would rarely fail students. I would always try to be understanding. But I think it's, after a while, it's exhausting. I remember a story about Mother Teresa. She was a German, I think, nun. Hello, Matthew. And she had gone to visit India for a few days. And she enjoyed the culture, she enjoyed the people so much that she sent letters to the Pope asking if she could basically move to India and help out people there, the villages and schools and all that. And after, I think, several demands, the Pope ultimately agreed that she can actually go there and live there. And after some years, she said that I resented helping people. And most often when she was praying to God, in solitude, she would have a wrestling or a fighting match with God because she didn't want to be around people. She didn't want to be servicing everybody. And yet, because of her habit, because of perhaps components of shame and guilt, because you're going against the vows of nunnery or being a service to humanity, so she felt bad. But nevertheless, there came a point where she just didn't want to do it. I think her question, Matthew, since it came late, is why are people so crappy? Right? Yeah. Jamie, was that accurate? You're very kind. Can I tell you a story? This story comes from the Sufi tradition. I know you guys know what Sufism is, so I won't delve too much into it, right? You don't know what it is. That's okay, you don't really need to know. It's a story given to us by, what's his name? Some guy. I won't even say his name because most of you will probably butcher it. And that will hurt my feelings. So, there is this monk who is sitting, and all of a sudden a friend goes to him and says, if you were to die today and find yourself in the presence of God, and God was to ask you what kept you from worshiping me in a way that I deserve, what kept you from loving me in a way that I deserve, what would your answer be? It's a great question, you know. It's like someone coming to you and saying, why isn't your life as meaningful as you want it to be? Why isn't your life as exciting, as inspiring, as creative as you wanted it to be? Okay. Now, the truth is, when someone asks you those questions, you can't but feel condemned. Condemned by your own life, condemned by your own lack of will, courage, strength, condemned by your ignorance, condemned by laziness, by arrogance, by pursuing things that are trivial and, you know, just childish. And that's one of the difficulties at moments of clarity. You don't need anyone. You don't need your mom, your dad, Jesus Christ to come down and condemn you. You do a good job condemning yourself when you have these moments. So this is the man's response. I wasn't asked to be born. No one asked me if I wanted to come down here. You have a man and a woman laying next to each other. They engage in the act of sex. The woman misses her cycle. She gets pregnant. And all of a sudden I find myself in the darkness of the womb. I'm in this woman's belly. You know. And what is it that human beings want? Why are you guys in this class? It's freedom. Why is she doodling? It's freedom. Freedom from distraction. Why are you guys here in school? You want to make sure you're not being held hostage by poverty, by homelessness, by lack of respect by society. You know, everything that we do in life is about freedom. Why are you wearing a mask? Freedom from sickness. Almost everything that we do from the very beginning of our lives to the very end is about freedom. I had my MRI yesterday about my shoulder. 2 options, surgery or injection. Injection is basically a sort of distraction. I won't feel pain. I can't move my arm as much, but I won't feel pain. It'll help me sleep at night. You know, I can comb my hair, take a shower with ease, relative ease. Surgery, on the other hand, you know, it's 12 to 16 weeks of being held hostage. And God knows what's going to happen after that. You know. Why is my shoulder the way it is? Because I was stupid. I built a shed all by myself. I lifted all that heavy, lumber all by myself. I worked every single day for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours with heavy equipment. And in some ways, I suppose my body wants freedom from me because I keep abusing it. And ultimately it says, I'm not going to let you do that anymore. I'm going to kind of tear something in your shoulder, and then you have to suffer, and then I'll get some rest. So everything we do in life is about freedom. It really, really, really is. I mean, look, you right now may be distracted by school, by the business of life. There's going to come a time where something about you says, I want a companion. That's freedom from loneliness. You know, then no doubt when you get into a relationship, you will have some disagreements. And then you will do whatever you can to find some way to get free from the emotions created by the heated discussions, fights. You don't want to sleep on the sofa. You know, you don't want your man or your woman to come home and you guys not talk. What kind of a space is that? You know, it's going to impact you negatively. So everything, again, we do in life, it's not because you want justice, it's not because of any of that stuff. Deep down, it's really all about freedom. So we give it different names and titles. Our good friend here, 14 weeks, 15 weeks?
It's like 2.5 months now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which that is.
Yeah, 10 weeks, right? 2.5 months sober. That's freedom. You know, that's freedom from a lot of things. Freedom from habits that cause you to act in a certain way, feel a certain way, think a certain way. You know, everything about life is about freedom. So, he says, I was born in the darkness of the womb. I don't want to be in darkness. I want to move around. I have a body. But I have to wait and wait and wait until I am fully cooked inside this woman's belly. 40 weeks later, I come out. And I come out assuming that it's going to be a happy birth. And I look out and I realize I'm a stranger in a strange land. This newborn. You know, and what does a newborn do? Well, cry. What else can the newborn do? Cry. In some sense, he or she is very happy for being out of the darkness of the womb. In a different sense, what the hell do you do once you're out? Where do you go? You know? And you're kind of moving your limbs around, and before you know it, someone gets a towel and wraps you in it really, really tightly. You can't move your hands, you can't move your legs. And he said, I thought that when I come out, I'd be free. 10 seconds later, I am wrapped up so tightly I can't do anything. I sit there and I pray again, God, you know, when am I going to be unwrapped so I could move around? And he says, after a few days, I realized that this cloth is being removed from me. But then I realize that people around me are walking and talking and sitting and standing and running, and I say, I want those things for myself, but I can't. I'm far too small. You know, I don't have the ability to stand, to roll, to sit up, to walk, to run. So I'm being held hostage by all these inabilities, and I want freedom from them. You know. And so, lo and behold, he says, one day I realized that I have the strength to sit up. I should have been happy, but no. I see people standing, and I say, sitting up is not enough. I want to stand. I mean, our pride, our greed, our covetousness, our ambitions, they begin at the moment of birth, perhaps even prior to it. None of these things are 7 deadly sins. Without them, you'd end up nowhere in life. You know. And then days pass by, and all of a sudden you realize, yes, you're stretching your arms, you're grabbing the sofa, and you're helping yourself stand. You should rejoice. And you do for a couple of seconds, but you realize people are actually standing, freestanding, without holding on to anything. And then envy and jealousy come about, and you say, I want to be like that. And you are after a few days more. And then you realize people are walking. You know, you say, I want that. Then you walk. Then you see people running. I want that. And you do. And as you go into the streets, you realize that kids perhaps a bit older than you are doing skateboarding and bicycling and hoverboarding and all that stuff. You say, I want all things for myself. I mean, you need to understand that every time a desire comes about and the desire turns into a need, it means that you want it. And because you don't have it, it puts you in sort of a kind of a tiny little cage, and you want freedom from this cage. It's like Jamie. She has an emotion. She doesn't quite understand the emotion, and she doesn't know if she can put the emotion in language, put the emotion in music, or put the emotion in drawing. But all she knows is that this emotion is holding her hostage, and she wants freedom from this emotion. She wants to express it, throw it out there, so she could be freed from it. And if you can imagine the emotion to be a spirit, you want to give the spirit flesh, like Jesus Christ. You know, there's the Spirit of God. All of a sudden, there's this new desire that God has. I want my spirit to have a container. Okay? And so, depending on how talented she is, how creative she is, you know, because if she's not talented or creative, what's going to happen? She has all these emotions, but that emotion will remain inside her, will never be expressed outwardly. And it's going to kind of suffocate her from the inside. If you've read, for example, the Gospel of Thomas, there is this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful saying. And you don't really have to be a Christian. You just need to be a human being who's interested in just life and yourself. And it says, if you don't live, or if you don't express that which lives inside you, it will suffocate and kill you. I mean, that's remarkable. The insight that this man, if he ever existed, had some 2,000 years ago. That if you have emotions inside you, okay? I want to get sober. That's an intense emotion. It comes with a great amount of clarity. I mean, there is freedom right there. Now, what this freedom now desires is to see itself express out in application. And you come out and you say, I am 2.5 months sober. You know? The fact that there is the bottle, you don't touch it. There are your friends all high, but you are sober. You know? That you can see in real time that you haven't touched anything and you have remained sober. That desire that has lived inside you begins to see itself. And you should be proud of that. If the Catholics want to call it a sin, let them. You know? And you need to be arrogant about that. Shout and say, I am 2.5 weeks sober. Beautiful. Okay. Now keep in mind, from the beginning of life, you and I desire freedom. He says, okay, well, now I can walk, I can talk. At the age of 5, I begin to misbehave a little bit. At least that's how it's been told to me. I'm misbehaving. So my father comes to me and slaps me and spanks me and sticks me. What was I doing? I was just jumping on the sofa. I was just eating ice cream. Does that really deserve a slapping? And then I realized, he says, I was all of a sudden imprisoned in this thing called discipline. Life has do's and don'ts. I prayed to come out of my mom's belly, and I did. And I realized, no, this is no freedom. They toweled me, they wrapped me tightly. Then I prayed for this towel to be removed. Then I realized I'm now being held hostage by my inability to be mobile. Then I had the freedom to eat ice cream and doing this and doing that, and then I realized my parents' desire to discipline me, and it's painful. And then I realized that there are certain boundaries, there are certain lines I can't cross, and I, honor them. Then they sent me to school, I had to go home and do the alphabets, make words, make sentences, read, write, do things I didn't really want to. I said, what kind of a life is this? Every time I get a small taste of freedom, once again they bind me. Then I prayed, when is my school going to end? So I could go out there and just freely live my life. Then I realized at the age of 15 or 16 or 17, there is this newfound desire that's exploding inside me. It's called sex. For some strange reason, I look at the opposite sex. This is an era where, homosexuality and those things don't really exist, and if they do, they're really behind closed doors. And I really desire to be with the opposite sex, and I don't know why. And I don't want to sin. I don't want to go out there and just sleep around. So how do I avoid sinning? My father looks at me and says, son or daughter, it's time for you to get married. I said, yes. Finally, I have the freedom to have sex with someone without it being categorized as a sin, as a blasphemous act against humanity or God. Then I realized that there are do's and don'ts in relationships. Sex comes with a cost, and didn't know it costs so much. But the worst thing about sex was that one day my wife comes home and says, you're going to be a father. I said, I was looking for freedom. Freedom from sin, so I had sex. I said, now I can do whatever I want to, but my wife began to discipline me. If that wasn't enough, all of a sudden she says, you're going to be a father. What the hell do you do with that? I was just about to live my life freely. And then this child was born, and I looked into his or her eyes. And for some strange reason, this emotion called love grew inside me. And with love, I was held hostage by care, by compassion, by forgiveness, by wanting to sacrifice my entire life for the well-being of this child. All I wanted to do was to live my life. But at every corner there is something waiting for me to chain me, to enslave me. And so I worried. I worried about their financial needs. I worried if they're going to have a roof over their head. Or worried about whether or not they're going to go to sleep hungry. If they're going to be educated. If they're going to, have various things that life needs, so that they could be comfortable. And then they got to a certain age when I said, who are they going to marry? Endless worries held me hostage. And then eventually my son or my daughter, they got married and they had their own life. And then I raised my arms to the heavens and I said, God, thank you. Now I am free to live my life. Then I looked in the mirror and I saw myself to be all wrinkled. My beard is gray. My hair is either fallen or they're white as well. And I realized I am now being held hostage by old age, sickness, fragility of all kinds. And I said, well, maybe now, in old age, I can have the freedom to sit and read the Bible, to read the Quran, to maybe think a little bit about my life. But no, I had aches here, pains there, and I realized that I can't even do that because my body is now in the way. So from that point on, I prayed for death, because death is the ultimate thing that will bring freedom to you. You won't feel anything. And so I died, and I was in my tomb, and all of a sudden the angels of death descended from the heavens, and they came to me and they said, who is your God? What have you worshipped in your life? And then I realized not even in death can I be free. So when God asks me why I couldn't love Him, worship Him, reflect, think well, live well, it's because at every corner life demanded things from me. Human beings are never free. Look, do not be deceived. Let me you know what the difference between you and I are? Differences? Kendra, Jamie, Sarah, Matthew, and David. I had the fortune, the privilege of having parents who could support me financially. I also had the privilege of having a temperament that desired to read and to reflect. I also had the privilege of running into some really, really interesting people in my life that they forced me to take certain things, philosophy and religion and thinking and reflecting seriously. I also had the great fortune of putting myself, with the help of various people, through school, getting degrees. I also been very lucky to be animated enough to go to interviews and inspire the committee to be given full-time positions multiple times at different places. I have been most lucky because I've been in the classroom for the past 30 years talking about ideas. My body has relatively been healthy, which means that I had the privilege of sitting, thinking, and writing. You sit there, you say, okay, well, I want to teach. I want to be in the classroom and shine. That's the wrong comparison. You know, you may desire Tesla, but you're working at In-N-Out. And I say this because most of us have a tendency of going to YouTube and listening to people like Jordan Peterson, listening to the dream speech of Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr., YouTubing Angela Davis, being inspired by all these New Age teachers with lofty and profound ideas about how human beings should live life. I mean, Henry David Thoreau, suck the marrow out of life. It's a profound phrase. Socrates, the unexamined life is not worth living. Profound phrase. Jesus Christ, seek the kingdom of God. There can be no other phrase more beautiful than that. But look at their lives. All these people, despite the hardship that they had, they were lucky enough to be able to live out their ideas on the stage. You and I don't have that ability. First you're 18, you're trying to figure out what the hell to do with your life. And right now for you guys, life is immensely complicated. You know why? You know, when you go to In-N-Out, there are 3 items on the menu. I mean, sure, you can play with it. You can say, I want an animal-like fries or an animal burger. Fine. Let's say 5 items on the menu. But when you go to Barney's, there are like 50 different versions of a burger. You know, every 5 seconds, the waiter comes to you, can I take your order? No, I'm still like on the second burger trying to figure out what's on this. I need like another 10 minutes to go through the entire menu, you know. And so all you want to do is just eat the goddamn food and they shit it out an hour later. But now eating has become so complicated because the menu is so goddamn thick. Look at the world of advertisement and how it blitzes you on a daily basis. Look at the emotions each single one of you have in this room. I mean, you guys are immensely complicated. And we don't do well with too many choices. It confuses us. I mean, that's why monogamy is such a healthy place to be in life. Not just monogamy in romantic relationships. You want to do business, God damn it, just focus on business. I mean, the Jews had such a beautiful time. It's Yahweh, it's synagogue, and it's Saturday. And there is the paradise waiting for you down there somewhere. I mean, initially they didn't even have the version of a heaven or a hell. They had a Sheol. You die, 10 minutes later you're finished. There is no God who's going to judge you. There is no God who's going to condemn you. There is no paradise. There is no hell. You know, your only damnation would be if you were to be bad to your neighbor, to your society. Then condemnation would not come from God, it would come from your parents, it would come from your elders in your society. I mean, that's the elements of shame and guilt that lived inside you. They were all social, they were beautiful. Jesus comes about. Now you have two options. Should I worship my mom, honor thy parents, right? Or screw my parents? Maybe I should just worship Yahweh. But which one do you choose? I mean, you are attached to your parents. All of a sudden, this bozo comes about and says, no, the fifth commandment, honor thy parents, it's no good. Your parents belong to the world of Caesar. You need to go directly to God. And all of a sudden, you have to part from them. I mean, you guys in the 21st century, you have all these friends, like a piece of advertisement, bulletin board, that are going to create different sets of desires. And if you have 20 friends who have different desires, you have all these different sets of desires inside you. Then you have media. Then you have your parents. Then you have your teachers. Then you have your own ridiculous internal dialogues. Forces inside us, we don't even know where they come from, why they even exist. You know? I mean, look. Our friend here. You know, put him in a different environment, this addiction would never exist. He runs into a few of his buddies. They introduce to him A, B, C, D. He says yes. All of a sudden he gets a taste of freedom. He doesn't know what the cost is just yet. 2 years later he realizes he's low in thinking. He can't function without smoking or drinking or whatever. And now that which gave him freedom now holds him hostage. Now he has to make a choice. And it's difficult. Remove that piece of advertisement, this decision-making process would never exist. You're 18, you go out with Bob. You're 19, you go out with Jack. You're 20, you go out with Michael. By the time you're 25, you've gone through 50 men. And you have understood zero about relationships, zero about commitment. All you know is that no single one human being is enough for you. You want like a combination of all the 50 people you've dated in a single human being. That's chasing a ghost. It's never going to happen.